Right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daiwa Anglo-Japanese Foundation. I'm Jason James. So our speaker today is Dr. Anna Bugaeva, and she is joining us from Tokyo. And I'll just very briefly introduce her. So she's Associate Professor at the Institute of Arts and Sciences in Tokyo University of Science. She works on linguistics, particularly linguistic typology of Northeast Asian languages, including, of course, Ainu. And she's worked at a number of other academic institutions, many of them in Japan. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, can I see my slides?
Yep, we can see them.
Good. So I'm going to start right here. Okay, firstly, I would like to thank Jason and Daiwa Anglo-Japanese Foundation for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my work with the world. Okay, right, so let's get started. And well, this is Ainu Handbook of the Ainu Language, which I've been editing for a while and which appeared in the fall of 2022. It consists of 21 chapters written by 17 contributors. And the series editors are famous Japanese linguists Masayoshi Shibatani and Taro Kageyama. So this book appeared as volume 12 of the series, which is called Handbooks of Japanese Language and Linguistics. And all other volumes are devoted to the Japanese language, while the very last one is devoted to Ainu. And this is quite happening here in Japan. Yeah, it was even covered by Japanese media. Yeah, quite unusual for a book on linguistics, but yeah, in a sense of it's quite a social event also in Japan. So the project was started as part of NINJAL, a National Institute of Japanese Language project, typological and historical comparative research on the languages of Japanese archipelago and their environs, headed by John Whitman at that time. Then it was continued as another project, Endangered Languages and Dialects in Japan. Well, this is an example of unprecedented cooperation among the leading experts on Ainu. We've been holding a number of meetings in Japan and one in Helsinki as well, and it has been going very well, but took quite a while to complete the handbook. Right? So, what is special about Handbook of the Ainu Language? Firstly, I would like to make a remark. It's not the first English description of Ainu. So the first full-scale English Ainu English-Japanese dictionary with an attached short grammar was actually published by the Anglican Church missionary John Batchelor in 1887. And I'm pleased to announce that here in this audience, we're having a grand nephew of John Batchelor, yeah, whose name is Mr. Andrews, Mr. Timothy Andrews. Yeah, thank you for attending the meeting. And while this is not the first English description, there are quite many. This, I would say, that is the first comprehensive description of Ainu in English, which means covering many different aspects of Ainu and also not focusing only on one dialect, only on one Ainu variety, trying to cover more dialects, quite many dialects. So it consists of two parts. Part one, overview of Ainu studies. For example, Ainu ethnogenesis, history of Ainu studies, history of Ainu, language contact, dialects, oral literature, and revitalization. So if you are to start studying Ainu, or you want to find out some kind of information about Ainu, if you're doing research somehow related to Ainu studies, that's the book to look at, yeah. Especially part one, well, it's a comprehensive overview of what has been done on Ainu to the moment. Second part is typologically interesting characteristics of the Ainu language. It is more oriented to linguists, working on some linguistic phenomena, right? Say you are looking at passives in the world's languages, or I don't know, voice markers or whatever, and then you're curious about what is it like in Ainu. Okay, so well, if you're lucky enough, if this phenomenon is really present in Ainu, you should be able to find it in the handbook, information about it. So then noun incorporation, tripartite alignment, nominal classification, distinguishing ordinary and locative nouns, elaborate possessive classes, verbal number, a rich four-term evidential system, and undergrammaticalized aspect. Okay, so Ainu. What kind of language is that? So Ainu is a language isolate. It means that it does not belong to any language family in the world, as far as we know. There are 6,000 languages in the world, about 200 language families, and about 100 language isolates. So Ainu is one of them. So we don't know. Probably it used to belong to some bigger family, but yeah, all we have is what we have. So it's a language isolate, no relatives, as far as we know. Spoken in northern Japan, it's a moribund language. So I would say there are no more good speakers left. Personally, I haven't been doing any field work for about 10 years, but when I came in Japan in 1996, it was still quite possible. I've recorded, real spoken Ainu. But now we still have a few people who acquired some knowledge, some words, some short sentences in their childhood. But no fluent speakers, that's for sure. Unfortunately. Right. Of course, let's put aside revitalization efforts. That's completely different, right? By the way, information on Ainu revitalization can be also found in the handbook. So Ainu is divided into Hokkaido, Sakhalin, and Kuril groups of dialects. Hokkaido Ainu dialects into southwestern and northeastern subgroups. Sakhalin dialects, northern, central, and southern. Kuril, northern and southern, but they are really poorly investigated. Kuril Ainu was the first one to disappear. It disappeared in the beginning of the 20th century. So being squeezed between two big empires, Japanese Empire and Russian Empire, so the Kuril Ainu were the most unfortunate ones, really. And while Hokkaido Ainu was spoken till the beginning of the 21st century, I would say, So, like most languages in the world, Ainu did not have its own writing system, but it has been written down since the early 17th century in the Roman, Japanese kana, and later Cyrillic alphabets. So the first records of Ainu were made by a Jesuit priest before Japan was closed for 250 years. So before that, Angelis made some short list of Ainu words, and after that it was mainly documented by the Japanese translators who worked for Japanese government, Bakufu, and also a bit by Russians in the Kurils. Okay, so, and by the way, there are two great chapters in the handbook, one on Western records of Ainu, another on Japanese old documents. Most comprehensive description. So what happened to the Ainu language? In the early 20th century, severe ethnic and linguistic oppression by the Japanese state resulted in the rapid abandonment of the Ainu language. So on the Russian side, they were treated in a similar way, basically. So it was not used as a language of daily communication since the 50s. Okay, but for a half a century, Ainu was still remembered by older speakers who used it for transmitting oral literature. So sophisticated oral literature is there. At least 3 genres, 2 melodic genres, yukara, heroic epics, and kamu yukara, songs of gods, and also a prosaic genre, uepekere. There is a chapter on Ainu oral literature if you're working on this kind of things or just have an interest. Yeah. And I would strongly recommend looking at this corpus, online corpus, which I created with my colleagues. In fact, this project was started as a project, as a documentation project sponsored by University of London source, ELDP. I had an ELDP grant in 2007-2008, and that's when we started creating this corpus. It's quite big, it's 60,000 words, yeah, and it's available online. Now I will try to share it, just to... Okay, Jason, can you see the corpus?
Yes, yep.
Okay, great. So, yeah, just to show what it sounds like. So this is a song, this is a melodic genre, kamu yukara, woman. And you can see also Japanese glosses if you prefer. Okay.
No.
Okay, it's something followed with a refrain. Okay, so this is RFN, means refrain, so has no meaning. Yeah, la la la. Okay, right, enough. So yeah, please look at the corpus when you have time. And yeah, here is a map. Ainu surrounded by other Northeast Asian languages, as you see, Turkic, Mongolic, Koreanic, Japonic, the so-called Altaic languages, if you believe in the Altaic theory. If you don't, well, those are just neighboring languages in contact, right? And Amuric, Niv, Kamchukotic, Yukagiric, yeah, and Ainu there. So, in the next slide, I'm going to talk about the spread of the Ainu language. So the predecessor of Ainu arrived to Japan quite early, actually, 30,000 years ago from Southeast Asia. Yeah. And at that time, the Japanese islands were connected to the mainland, so they could easily proceed and reach Japan. Then at the beginning of the modern interglacial period, 10,000 years ago, sea level began to rise, and for many years, the ancient population of Japan was left in isolation. Then, 3,000 years ago, rice agriculturalists, who were the speakers of Japanese, as you may know, Japanese came from the Korean peninsula, started moving to the western Kyushu in Japan from the southwest of the Korean peninsula, so the future kingdom of Baekje, right? So there was definitely a period when the predecessor of Japanese was spoken in the Korean peninsula. That's even documented, so yeah. And then the migration to Japan continued through the Yayoi period, Kofun periods, resulting in the replacement of all multiple lineages that had evolved in the Neolithic Jomon, the so-called Jomon Japan, right? This is the Japanese term for Neolithic Japan, except for the Ainuic language family. So the point is that there were quite many Neolithic languages, several families, but all of them were swept away except for Ainu. So it's this really indigenous language, the only one really, which remained for some reason. Okay, so then Ainu spread to Hokkaido about 1,000 years, around 1,000 Common Era, and southern Sakhalin 1,300 Common Era, and to the Kuril Islands 1,500 or so. So, and Ainu also could have contributed to the reduction of linguistic diversity on the Japanese archipelago by sweeping away or absorbing other German languages. As I said, there were probably many. Yeah, or on its northward spread to Hokkaido. Okay. Even if you read like old chronicles of Japan, like Nihon Shoki, right? You may have noticed that there are some mentions of some mysterious peoples, other peoples like Hayato or Kumaso, right? So those are probably the old Neolithic population. So with their own languages, but they just didn't remain. Only the Ainu is left. Okay, and we move on. So Ainu, why is Ainu so important? So Ainu is head marking, polysynthetic, and incorporating. And it's strikingly different from most Northeast Asian languages. So Ainu is likely to be much more typical of what languages were like in Northeast Asia several millennia ago than the picture we would get from Japanese or Korean. So it's a really ancient language. In this sense, it's really precious. So what is it that Ainu has, but Japanese and English and Japanese don't? Okay. So next I'm going to explain to turn to the second part of Handbook, so purely linguistic part, but that's something I feel excited about, really. So all people working on Ainu probably have their own aspects of excitement about Ainu. So I am excited about Ainu grammar. So it's head marking and polysynthetic, noun incorporation, verbal number, and evidentiality, and much more. But I'm going to cover these 5 aspects. So what is head marking? So the subject and object agreement on the verb. Third person is 0. Okay, example 1. A, I saw a bird. Kani, I, chika, bird, kunukara. Okay. So as you see, noun phrases, subject and object are unmarked, so no cases. Basically like in English, but yeah, in English you have I and me, so pronouns change a bit, right? But in other languages like Japanese, you have ga, or, right? Or yeah, inflectional cases like in Russian, right? So in Ainu, no things like that, bare nominals. But on the other hand, you put stuff on the verb. So you put subject marker, subject agreement, and object agreement. You can reduce the pronoun kani, but you cannot omit this ku on the verb. So, well, this is like verb is conjugating, right? Like in Latin, Russian, or Spanish. Yeah, but the thing is that it conjugates not only for the subject, but for object as well. So that boy bullied me. So Toan, Hekachi, and Koiki, you see, me is on the verb too. So you don't do this in Latin, I guess, or Greek, or whatever in the European language. So, and example 2, you, plural, should have called out to me. So you, me, both are on the verb, both are unomitable, obligatory. So, and in terms of grammatical structure, verb is the head, and subjects, objects are like arguments, right? They're dependent, right? So that's why it's called head marking on the verb. Okay, I guess I've explained it, so I'll move on. And polysynthesis. Being polysynthetic means being able to represent a whole sentence by a single verb, word, usually a verb. Okay, example 3, you must not eat meager meals. Fix proper food and eat it. So, yai ipe ekosunke literally means, so the stem is lie, say untruth, right? Then about, to, you see ko is to, then this ko takes this yai, to oneself, about food. Okay, so lie to oneself about food. Я είπε echo sumke is all, like I said, in one verb. Yeah, you don't do this in English, I guess. Okay, then noun incorporation. Noun may form one word with a verb. Okay, for example, the base clause is turep kuta. I dig wild lilies. Turep is wild lily, and it's the object of the verb to dig, right? And then you can incorporate, like in 4b, kuturepta. You see, it's included into the verb itself. Something in many languages, you can say this like lexically sometimes. Like in Japanese, you can say metoru, means to take a wife, to get a wife, but you cannot do it the other way, like for a. You can't say me or toro, right? It's like fixed, right? Well, here you can do it syntactically, either putting it separately as a separate word as the object, or putting it inside of the verb. When do you put it inside? And as you see, as you have noticed, so the translation is the same. So you might be wondering what's the difference between the two. Okay, so you usually use noun incorporation of the object when you are referring to some conceptually unitary and noteworthy cultural activities like cut trees, sew, build a house, build a fire, close the door, open the door, build a fire, catch fish, and build a house. Yeah, build a house twice, sorry, right? But yeah, something like that. And yeah. So you want to focus not on the participants who is doing the activity, but on the activity itself, and it's culturally like accepted. What is there anything you cannot incorporate? Yes, I would say so. You can incorporate river, but you cannot incorporate the Thames River, or I don't know, the Sikot River in Chitose, where I've been doing my field work. So specific things cannot be incorporated, only general things can. Okay, also, we've looked at object incorporation. So in the base clause, what you have incorporated later was the object. But actually in Ainu, you can also incorporate subjects. And noun incorporation of the transitive subject was claimed to be impossible, right? While it's possible in Ainu. Let's look at example 5a. Koi and Yankee, the wave raises me. Wave is subject, right? Me is object, right? And raise is verb, transitive verb. Okay, then what you do in 5b, I am wave raised. So a wave, the subject of the transitive verb, is being incorporated into the verb itself. That's very rare, really. Yeah, so the only way to translate it into English is by using the passive construction. Well, it's not passive, it's noun incorporation, something else. Very cool. Okay, let's look at number. Okay, so grammar. What's grammar? Grammar is when you have to use certain construction, even if you don't want. You have no choice. For instance, you have nominal number in English, right? If you look at an entity, you should make a choice when you are speaking, whether it's a single entity or many entities, right? So it's either table or tables. Okay, while in some languages, yeah, the same categories, for instance, nominal category is not there, is absent in Japanese. So here is a poem by Matsuo Basho, Furuike ya Kawazu to Bikomu Mizu no To, a famous one, right? And when you translate it into English, Kawazu means frog, or yeah, I don't know, frogs, who knows, right? So not specified. So the number is not specified. It's contextual in Japanese, nominal number is. And here are two translations by two Englishmen. Both are Americans. So the first one by Donald King, The Ancient Pond, a frog leaps in, the sound of the water. And the earlier one by Lafcadio Hearn, so old pond, frogs jumped in, sound of water. You see, different translations. The first case, one frog. In the second case, many frogs. I asked my students, they said, no, it's one frog probably. Yeah, but yeah, who knows? So one or two, or yeah. So the only way to decide in Japanese is context, probably some kind of cultural context, maybe. Well, if this evokes some, I don't know, Zen or Sabi or Wabi, so some ethical concepts of Japanese culture, then it should be probably this one frog. That's what my students told me. Yeah. Okay, let's look at Ainu translation. So, Fusco to an wa porounna terkipe. Okay, so there is old pond, right? There, frog. Okay, what does a frog do? Enter suddenly, and the sound of water, okay, in the end. As you see, there are two possibilities in Ainu. You can say either afun, if it's singular, or ahu plural. So what Ainu has is called verbal number. There is no nominal number, like in Japanese. Yeah, nothing like in English, right? But there is verbal number in Ainu. So a singular plural distinction in verbs is there. So if you say terki pe afun, a frog jumped, terki pe afup, many frogs jumped. Interestingly, that's in the case of intransitive verbs. If you take, for example, transitive verbs, then the situation is pretty different. So chep to ye, you cut one fish, chep tuipa, you cut either many fish or cut one fish several times. So it's either the number of the object participants or event number of actions. So yukraike, kill one deer, yukronnu, kill many deer. It's something like, as you can see, raike and ronnu are even not, suffix alternation, but two different words. So it's like kill and massacre in English. How do you know they are the same verb, actually? So here is a list of singular plural distinction that can be encoded by suffix alternation or suppletion, the so-called use of different stems. So, so one person sits on, many person sit oka. So go, one person goes, arpa, many people go, paye. Interesting, isn't it? And well, it goes on like that. And so verbal number is absent, of course, in Northeast Asian languages, but it's widely attested in North American languages, such as Utah-Etsekan languages, Pomoan, Hokan, and Athabaskan. And overall, not only looking at this verbal number, but also at other features, Ainu is more like a morphologically reduced version of a North American language. Morphemes are little pieces of meanings in one word, right? So, and if you have many pieces, like I showed you, like don't eat mega meals, right? Don't cheat yourself over food, then you had quite many meaningful units in one word. Okay, so so American languages, of course, can do it to a great extent, combine even more morphemes, more pieces. But Ainu does it quite reasonably, but still oversees a lot, say, languages like English. Okay, so another category, evidentiality, the indication of the nature of evidence for a given statement. So you not just say some statement, you should specify. How do you know that? Whether you have seen, felt, heard, or inferred it. Okay, so, and Ainu has like 4 markers. So Takahashi-san, who wrote a chapter on this in the handbook, doesn't adduce it as a separate grammatical category, right? So it's not a must, right? Grammar is about must. You should choose either frog or frogs, right? Here you can not mark it, but you're strongly recommended to do that. Okay, so visual, non-visual, sensory, hearsay, and inferential. So all originating in nouns like appearance, sound, voice, footprint, footprint. Okay, let's look at example 7. So it's all the same example, so which means that snow fell. Okay, the first one is marked with city. Snow fell. It is appearance, right? It is seen that snow fell. B, it is felt that snow fell. C, it is said that snow fell. And D, it is thought that snow fell. Okay, first one, you look out of the window, you see it. Then you use see. B, when you feel like maybe it's falling. So you're outside, it's falling, and you use sensory. C is your neighbor told me or you heard on the radio. And D is some kind of indirect evidence. Okay, maybe your husband's snowshoes are missing in the corridor and you are inferring that, okay, he put them on and probably the snow fell. Something like that. Quite handy category. Yeah, right. I wish. Yeah. We had it too in my native language, Russian, right? To specify if you're making a statement, okay, what's your evidence actually for saying this? Yeah. So languages are different. They are all wonderful. And Ainu is quite wonderful. That's my that's what I am trying to say. So this volume summary will open up the field of Ainu studies to the world and help to attract many new students and researchers. So being so different from other Northeast Asian languages, Ainu can definitely maximize the accuracy of our view of earlier linguistic ecologies in the region's deep past. Ainu will help people to appreciate the linguistic and cultural contribution of the Ainu of Japan to human intellectual heritage. So the volume will make a step towards forward in the process of the so-called gradual rediscovery of Japan as ethnically and culturally diverse nation. Okay, that's all I
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, so these are my acknowledgements. So especially to all Ainu people, past and present, who have allowed me to share their beautiful language and culture with the world. Thank you.